Well, it's 7 o'clock.
Let's
And
go.
what that means
Happy hour.
Thursdays with Terry. Everybody out there, I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us on our Thursdays with Terry. As our women's national team coach Terry Steiner walks us through training while dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight, we are extremely excited to have one of my favorite wrestlers, world champion, bronze medalist at the Olympics, Clarissa Chun. I just, I'm speechless. Clarissa, welcome and thanks for joining us. And I am so happy that you're here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Terry, nice to see you too. Not as much, but nice to see you.
Thanks, Alex.
You bet, Terry. So let's get right into it. Clarissa, you've had a long life of athletics. I'm not going to say how old you are, but you've had a long life of athletics. Tell the folks how you started out. I mean, you had a different kind of path. A lot of athletes out there that are watching tonight might have that same kind of path. Go.
Well, I started off judo when I was 7, and then growing up in Hawaii, they were the first state to have all girls states, so that was sanctioned. And I want to tell the year, 1998. I started my junior year in high school when I was 16. So wrestling, girls wrestling wasn't really as big back then, obviously, but there were a few girls in Hawaii that have wrestled before me. Like, I used to go watch my judo teammates that were older than me wrestle, and there would be like females wrestling wearing a white t-shirt under their singlet and whatnot. And I don't know why it took me so long. Actually, I do know why. It took me a while to start wrestling. I was actually a swimmer as well, and it was the same season. And I'm pretty competitive, or I think that I am, in the sense that I like winning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
at 4'11", I wasn't winning swimming meets, like I would place, because they give you ribbons up until 8th place, so, but I wouldn't, like, I don't know. So I was like, all right, I'll just give wrestling a try. It's like judo, contact sport, but it was different, I relied on a lot of my throws back then, and it really didn't really work on my takedowns until I got to college, probably. So that's
You
how
still tasted, but all through that time, you still tasted a lot of success.
Yeah.
So that crossover,
Mm-hmm.
tell us about that.
Oh, I felt like it was good. I wrestled boys my first year because it was a pilot year, so I would wrestle out for the boys 103 spot, the varsity spot, and so I would wrestle the guys during dual meets, but then whenever it was individual tournaments, I would wrestle the girls. So it'd be like 50-50, me getting my butt whipped by boys or like me winning some matches on that end of it. So it was fun.
I love how humble you are. Okay, because I happen to believe that you might have got some whoopings, but I know you gave plenty of them yourself. So anyway, so then you start getting full-time active into women's wrestling, and
oh, you want me to go on from there?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I always say I was lucky, right? Everything, like the way women's wrestling evolved was like perfect timing for me. Like the year I graduated high school, I got a scholarship packet from Missouri Valley College saying, if I was interested in wrestling freestyle, that they would give us a scholarship to Marshall, Missouri Valley College, and I had no idea what freestyle wrestling was. And it was, oh gosh, I'm gonna date myself. It was like AOL search. I remember searching on AOL, and like Trisha Saunders' name came up in the weight class that I was in, like, or I would be competing in. I was like, oh my gosh, who's this Trisha girl? You know, like she's won 4 world titles, and like, so that was like eye-opening to me as far as like there was like international like level wrestling. So I decided to go. I was like, oh, I didn't know. My brother was the one that told me that I should take that opportunity to go, because I was nervous, because like whenever I looked on the map, it was like, where's Missouri? And it was like smack in the middle of the state, or the United States, and it was just, I don't know, so foreign from home. So, but I went, and it was fun because there was like 4 other females from Hawaii that went too. So it's like I knew some people going in. There was like 2 other guys from Hawaii on the wrestling team that went as well. So it was nice to have like a group of people that I knew going into the middle of Marshall, Missouri. So I think, I don't know what it would have been like if they didn't offer a wrestling scholarship right off the bat. I don't think I would have fallen into that, like this path, I would say. Because like I said, I grew up doing judo, and growing up in judo, I think I always assumed that that was my route I was gonna take, that I was gonna, like, my goals and dreams were to go to the Olympics in judo. I would go to like Jimmy Pedro Jr.'s camps in Hawaii, and Jason Morris, and all these like Hillary Wolf, and I'm naming off names that people in wrestling probably don't know, but they were like medalists and great judokas in for USA. So yeah, so that's the route that I thought I was gonna go. But wrestling stole my heart, and yeah, it was, never turned my back on it since.
Perfect. Yeah, now it's a disease.
No.
Every week, it's a disease.
For me.
Yeah. Well, we're very fortunate. I'm going to bring Coach Steiner in, because now you have gone, and we'll talk about the transition. But before we get there, I'd like to stick with your path and your successes and how you got to that phase, because it wasn't number one automatically. But Coach Steiner, that's when you hooked up here with the USA national team, and Coach Steiner. Terry.
Yeah.
Your first impressions when you got.
Well, let me back up a little bit. I mean, Clarissa says, you know, she was really lucky along the way. I think, you know, who was really lucky was the country of the United States and USA Wrestling, right?
Right.
That wrestling found her, and that she pursued the opportunities in front of her, right? And we were very fortunate. And so my first time around Clarissa was when I first got into the sport of wrestling, and so into the sport of women's wrestling in 2002. And when they started the resident program in Colorado Springs, Clarissa was part of that first group. And it was evident right away that she was a very talented athlete, right? And had a lot of ability, and, you know, and she was working hard and knocking on that door, right? And you know, just had maybe more freestyle skill to develop, and just the mental side of it, right? Just believing in herself really is what had to come along, because the athleticism and just the athletic ability was there. It was just putting the pieces together and learning more about the sport of wrestling, because, as she said, imagine she was in the sport of swimming in Hawaii. That's hard to believe, right? No,
Yeah.
I mean, but then she was in judo, so she did have that, you know, a little bit of a knowledge of contact sport and things like that. So she was always in matches because she could throw anyone, right? And I was just learning the basics and learning the parterre, the parterre skills in the sport of wrestling, I think, is where, there was a lot of room to improve. But, the thing that, and we'll talk more about her career, but the thing about, the notion that I think sometimes athletes think and coaches need to think they need to change someone, right? They need to change a person's personality to be a winner, right? And I think Clarissa is living proof that you can be the kind person, you can be the humble person, and still be the person standing on top of the awards stand, right? And that never has to change. You don't have to change who you are and what you're about to be successful in anything, right? You just have to let your qualities shine through. And I think that's really, Clarissa has never changed from the first time from a standpoint of being humble and kind and giving of her time and everything like that. That's never changed as an athlete. And now as a coach, those same qualities have always peeked through, right? And I think through the sport and through her development, those were always there, and she just gained more skill and more love for the sport and everything like that. But and she had success, but she didn't have to change her personality to do that. And I think sometimes people think that you have to hate everyone around you and you have to be in this intense mode all the time where you're always competing against other people. And I think she really brought in an attitude of she was learning from everyone, right? And she was kind to everyone around her and was there to help her teammates. And early on, she wasn't the number one person, right? She was on the national team, but she had a lot of time sitting in that number 2 and 3 spot, and where there was some struggles. But that's also what made her, right, into who she is today, and before as a successful athlete, and now as a successful coach. Those times in those number 2 and 3 spots made her who she is today. So.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that because, all that's probably why she is one of my all-time favorites. Because of that, she never changed. I don't think she's ever changed. I've only known her since 2006, but her positive attitude coming in each and every practice, that just stands out. And you're right. You can be a nice person and still step on the mat and tear people up. And,
right.
So yeah, excellent stuff. So let's talk about, you've had some tremendous coaching. Keith Wilson has been, he was with you for I don't know how many years, or you were with him for how many years. And then Sammy the Bull. Sammy is just, he's awesome. Obviously, Coach Steiner in the national team. Talk about some of your coaching experiences.
Oh man, I think all different. Every coach, like Terry, Izzy, Keith, Sammy, they're all really, really great coaches, and they all bring different things to the table. I don't know. Terry was always really good at knowing what to say and when to say it to motivate me, and like really, it was that like made me want to be better. Like Terry always had great talks about being better and being at your best, and striving to be your best, and not just on the mat but off the mat. And a lot of those values and like messages stuck with me, because there was some knucklehead things that I've had done, like in my, like just bad relationships.
We all.
That I probably added some gray hairs to Terry's head. I probably contributed to some, in my early beginnings of figuring things out as a young athlete, and Izzy, I always feel like is like dives into like the wrestling and the sports psychology, but not making it known that he's working on those kind of things. You know, he's very intelligent man. And Keith, when I worked with Keith, was very like, when I worked with him, a lot of it was the details and slowing things down. And oh, it was really good. I learned so much, and at times it was really hard because of the very like perfect details, right? So sometimes it would be hard, you know, because it can get frustrating if I can't hit a certain position like exactly how it like should be in that way. But he was really great. And then Sammy, oh my gosh, I only wish I had the energy and intensity.
Right, we all do.
Yeah, like, and he was great, you know, he always like knew how to lift me up and keep it light and positive, and, you know, like motivate me in a different way, you know, and his intensity was just like none other. And I was just like, give me some of that, you know, like, so I think like everything was just, I was very like I say, I always feel lucky and grateful for the path that I had, you know, and all the coaches I've had. And even my college coach and high school coaches, you know, like my high school coach, Brian, he never treated me different from the guy wrestlers, you know. You
were a wrestler.
I was a wrestler, right? So it's like
Yeah.
never took it easy on me, never, you know, it's like he spoke to everyone as a team and not like girls here, guys here, or anything like that. Never separated us. And all like the girls and the guys trained together, intermixed together. And my college coach, it was Kent Chiro. He didn't know freestyle, but you know, it's not easy to coach, you know, a group of like women from a, like I would say there was like about 30 or so on our team our first year. And it was like the first year that they had women's wrestling, and we came from all over the country, and every girl thought they were badass, right? Because they got a scholarship to come to this school, right, to Missouri Valley. So everyone thought that they were something and they had something to prove, and that they wrestled guys, and they, you know, like, so I felt bad for coach because he did his best he could, you know, with a group of strong women who had a lot of things to prove. And I think about that in our beginnings with Terry, you know, we were just excited. We were just chomping at that bit, like, yes, you know, here's our opportunity, you know, to, like, our dreams are within our reach, you know, like that the IOC included women's wrestling in the 2004 Olympics. So then that was, I don't know, I would say that was probably my more fun years of training, was those early years at the training center, because we would scrap. I felt like, I don't know, I thought we did until Terry like stopped practice and was like, told us that we need to all quit talking. That was like, you know, it was like,
hold on just a second, Clarissa. Terry, did it work? Did it work? Because if it worked, I need the magic potion. I need to, you know, what you did there. That's
you know what? There was one moment, and someone just asked me about this the other day, about moments in the sport that you clearly remember, you know, being involved with women's wrestling, and this was one of them. And I was with the team, the national team, at this time for about, I would say about 6 months. So it would have been like January of 2003. Mm-hmm. And we came back from the World Championships, and I thought we had a really good team going into the World Championships, but it showed how little I knew about women's wrestling, and how little I knew about our opponents and what we were really in for. And we went to the World Championships, and we had 2 medalists coming home, and we were 11th place as a team. And I was like, wow, we have a lot of work to do, right? We have a lot of catching up to do. But the girls, like Clarissa said, they were so excited to finally be in a setting where they were the number one focus, right? And all the attention was on them. And so anyways, we come into practice on this. It was in January, mid-January sometime. We were doing a hard drilling session, and I thought I had laid out my expectations for practice and what I wanted from them. But we got into this practice, and there was just zero focus, and there was a lot of talking, and there wasn't intensity, and we were going for probably, after the warm-up, we were probably going for about 20 minutes, and I just called them in, and I said, I'll see you tomorrow. And they looked at me, and they were like, why? What do you mean, see you tomorrow? And I said, no, I'll see you tomorrow. And they were like, why? And I said, you know what? How we're going about things today, you're not getting anything out of it, and it's kind of a waste of your time, and it's a waste of mine. And I said it's the first time since I've been with you as a group and as a team that I can say I'm disappointed in our efforts today, right? And that's it. I walked out of the room. I never gave them a chance to rebut the situation or anything, and oh my goodness, you would have thought that like someone died that day. So I went to the office, and I was getting calls and, texts and everything. I mean, everyone was like trying to reach out to me, and they were so like ashamed, I guess, kind of that they didn't give what they wanted. And it really made me realize as the coach that, wow, it's not that they didn't want to work, or they didn't want to do what I was asking. Maybe it was me a little bit. Maybe I wasn't very clear with what I really wanted that day, because it was
Terry, that's nice of you, Terry.
well, no, but listen, so the next day, so we came back in the next day. I said, hey, don't worry about it. When they called me or texted me, I said, don't worry about it. We'll see you tomorrow. And when we came in that next day, I didn't have to say anything. When I walked in the room, you could see the intensity already, the focus. It was like laser focus. They were intense. And when we started practice that day, like it was a difference of night and day. It was like two different teams. And then it really showed me, like, number one, they want to learn, they want to be better, and they want to do everything that I'm asking. And so, but everyone needs reminders, right? And everyone needs some things along the way to push them back in line. And so, but it was one of those moments that, to this day, was a moment that I'll never forget. And it was a great moment, but it was a learning moment, I think, for everyone involved. So.
Yeah. So along those lines, I know you've had some terrific training partners, and because we have parents, we have coaches, but we also have athletes on the team. Talk about the importance of a great training partner. I know you were when we were with Sammy, you were with Jess, and that she was your training partner. And I mean, I think it was great for you there. And it's how important is that training partner and the relationship you get with that training partner?
Yeah. Well, I would say I was a training partner for a very long time. I would say, literally, like Terry said earlier, I was number 2 and 3 on the national team, give or take 8 years. I would
Hold
say.
that thought.
Mm-hmm.
As the training partner.
As the training partner.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Please talk about that importance. You as the training partner as well in the learning experience.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard, right? Because, like when we strive to be our best or strive to be the best, right? We want to be number 1, right? And for me, I wasn't ever that number 1, but I always felt lucky or honored that I was considered a training partner, and sometimes people can take it bad, right? Like, oh, training partner, like who wants to be a training partner? It makes you feel like you're the one that does all the dirty work, right? Like, you're just working on whatever the world team member wants to work on. But you know what? when I started like taking that role as I can be better, from it, and what an opportunity for me to learn about more, even, right? Because the focus is on the number one person. You'll know their strengths, you'll know their weaknesses, and if you pay attention, if you start listening, and even if the coach isn't talking directly like what you need to do, if it's like what the number one person has to do, it's all the same. It all applies the same, the technique and everything. So if you start paying attention, then you can pick up even more, and you can feel the positions more. Like I always think that for every offense, there's a defense. For every defense, there's an offense. And I feel like that all kind of goes together. So then that's how I kind of look at wrestling sometimes, like when things are being taught to me. And I don't know, I think it's critical to be able to like keep that open mind as a training partner. And as far as just like growing from it, there's so many times I've had training partners myself, and Jess was one of them, but I also had a bunch of high school kids like in town when I was wrestling with Keith, and it was like me recruiting kids like constantly because these kids would outgrow me, like they would get too big for me a lot of times, so like I would start with them, and like as I think the thing also for me in that point in my career, like me and coach was teaching the training partner how to be better for me, because then the more I leveled up, or the training partner got better, the better it would be for me. But I would say in my earlier career when I was a training partner, oh man, no better than iron sharpens iron. Like we talked about it the other day that it like, and just now it was fun in the early years of the OTC, because we would battle, whether it was Jenny and Mary Kelly, Patricia Miranda, Katie Kunimoto. Like we had like a lot of tough athletes. Like I would wrestle up to Marcy's weight class, and it was fun. It was just letting it go, But yeah, I think the importance of a training partner is just listening and working well together, like giving that, good feel. It just depends on the situation, right? And yeah, I don't know. Like Sammy's sons were my training partners as well. And then I'm kind of embarrassed to say, like, Wyatt was 13 with the heaviest hands I've ever felt, and he would beat me up. So like, I'm like, this 13-year-old kid would like take it to me, and oh my gosh, but it was a good thing I didn't have an ego. And now I'm happy because he's going to be a Hawkeye and he's going to do good things. And it's,
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah.
Congratulations for him.
Yeah, I helped with that development.
Yeah, I met him at I met him at the gas station. Remember? we were headed to North Carolina, and you stopped over to say hi, and you had him.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recognize his heavy hands, big hands, heavy.
Oh my gosh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful. Morgantown, the traffic that day you drove through was awful.
Now it's funny because as a training partner, that's how Terry and I actually started this journey with women's wrestling, because my son Christopher with Patricia.
Yep.
So yeah. So before we move on, it's almost 7:30. Frank, you want to fit in a question now before your commercial break, or it's up to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've kind of talked about, Clarissa starting and, your journey through, through wrestling there in the beginning, I had a question from Frank, and not me, but Frank Barbie. And that was, what kept you in the sport since you started during the humble beginnings?
What kept me in the sport of wrestling?
What kept you in the sport of wrestling?
I think the relationships as far as the teams, traveling. Honestly, I think wrestling is like, I always felt there was always something more in wrestling. Like it wasn't ever like anything that I could ever like perfect or be like get it down like so well, right? So I think it was just for me the evolution of my wrestling career kept me going, you know. I think the other day I did a podcast with someone and they asked me what my favorite takedown was, and honestly I think if you had asked me in my early career I would say high crotch, high C's. I would say later in my career like single legs, but I don't know, you know, like it's like I can't just pick one because I think like I think I stayed in the sport because I enjoyed it so much that there was so much to learn and know and absorb, and the relationships like with the team and traveling. So the relationships with the people I compete against or meet at training camps overseas and whatnot. I think all of that. So I don't know. I just maybe I'm crazy and I love the sport too much.
Oh no, you're crazy. Okay, we got back up there, right?
Yeah.
That was not an easy. I mean,
Hence the reason for being on this webinar right now.
You know what I think of it as, okay, so Terry's crazy because
oh, Terry's.
yeah, like Terry runs really
Come on,
hard.
come on.
Like Terry runs really hard. And this is how I like kind of relate it to when I think of it like as like why would I stay in the sport this long? It's like it's that craving, right? That you want, right? Like that because wrestling's so hard, but it's so fun, you know, and it's that like that, let me just wrestle, you know, like I still get like that, you know, but yeah, Terry runs hard on the treadmill, and there was one time he said this and I was like, man, he's crazy. He gets off, he's like, you know, I crave that feeling of just catching my breath of air. like what? Like where you're like like you need a deep breath of air, that craving of what? No, that's crazy. No.
Yeah, I have a craving for steak and potatoes, Terry. Come on. Yeah, to each his own.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, Terry, that's not normal, man.
No, you're not normal, Terry.
No, that's not normal at all.
No, it's normal. I'm normal compared to my brother.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. So,
No.
Frank.
No, and I would say the same thing. I would say that, you know, why was it wrestling? I don't know why it was wrestling. It was always important, right? I can't remember from the first time my dad put me out in the middle of the mat when I was in kindergarten, you know, and it was important. It was important. It bothered me if someone scored on me. It bothered me when something went wrong. And I think like Clarissa said, it's something you could never perfect. There was always something to work on. There was always another obstacle. You know, it was never like, oh, that was good. That's done. It was an unfinished product all the time. So you always felt like you were coming back to finish the product, but you never got it finished, right? And even to this day as a coach, you know, it's like it's never a finished product. There's always more to build, and there's always more to add on, and there's always things to change. You're never staying in the same spot. You're always moving, you know, to move forward. You're always having to adjust and change and adapt to situations and to the people around you and the team with you. And so, yeah, I think just that constant learning and constant challenge is just something that grabs onto you, right? And it's hard to shake it off.
Yeah, so I've got a couple more things I want to move to, but if Frank, if at any time you see a question that you want to get to, go ahead. But I want to talk about before we, because a lot of people have the same things that I know, Clarissa, that you have gone through, even though you've had these championship runs, and that is lack of belief or belief in self. Okay, well, I want to touch on that. I really want to talk about transitioning from an athlete to that coach. And but let's start with colleges, because coaches don't understand what they can actually do for a young lady. Old coaches set in their ways, boys wrestle, girls don't. If they look at the price of colleges nowadays and we start talking about financial assistance, I know Joan Fulp has been phenomenal with us in New York and all across the country. When you were competing, Clarissa, and you went to college at Missouri Valley, or how many colleges had wrestling at that point? Terry, you might be able to answer this one.
I know. In 2002, when I started, I think there was 5 college programs.
Okay, so now, today, ballpark, because it changes every day, so it won't
Yeah.
hold.
Ballpark right now are like 85 programs.
85 programs, and the majority of them, I would say, have money to give to wrestlers.
Right.
And so coaches that, I mean, you got to look at your heart and say why. And Terry's, I think the best article I've read on women's wrestling was Terry, Coach Steiner wrote Women's Wrestling, Why Not? And it was just fantastic. And a quick 30-second summary on that, Terry. Just
Well, I think, you know, when coaches are really questioning and why or if they should get involved with women's wrestling, if they should allow women in their wrestling rooms, you know, if they're struggling with those, which I hope this day and age we're not struggling with that question anymore.
right.
But if they are, I think I just went through all the reasons. You know, if you look back at how it's helped all of us, and how it's helped shape human beings, and it continues to build character in people, you know, there's so many reasons why wouldn't you do it? You know, if it's good for if it's good for a man out there, why isn't it good for a female, right? And so that's really the gist of it, you know, of the article. But yeah, I mean, I wrote that pretty early on because, you know, I think coaches were really struggling with, is this something they want to get involved in, right? And is it so different? And coaching is coaching, right? Educating is educating, and teaching is teaching. And so, you know, I think you got to look at it, you know, if you're really in this sport for the right reasons to move people forward, then why does it make a difference if it's a man or a woman in front of you, right? And I think that's what I tried to get across in that article when I wrote it.
Yeah, fantastic. Clarissa, anything on that?
I think it goes back to why I stayed in the sport so long too. You know, it's like there is no perfect, right? Like, so I was on my high school bowling team, you know.
Wow. Wow. You didn't know. I'm waiting for surfing. You're a Hawaiian, for crying out loud.
Hey, it was fun. My team,
Swimming.
why not? So in the sport of bowling, a perfect game is 300, right? So wrestling, there is no like, I mean, you can tech and pin and whatnot, but like it's never, it's the challenge, right? It's the like failing and picking yourself up, you know, and that builds your character, you know. Like if you just like have everything easy and you don't fall, then, you know, that's not real. That's life has those ups and downs. And I feel like wrestling really mimics that, as far as like building character, you know, and how you're gonna pick yourself up, how you're gonna like come back, and, you know, like all those situations that you put yourself in. And it's like constant, right? It's not, you know, it can change from day to day. It can change from like a situation in a match, or a period in a practice or whatnot, right? So yeah, I think why not?
That's great. I'm glad you brought that
Yeah.
up because we were going to talk about failures and shortcomings that led to your success, and that's huge. Yeah, Frank?
Yeah, so got a question from Laura and Clarissa. What advice would you give to female wrestlers in states that are in the beginning stages to keep them motivated?
Oh, hi Laura. Fun. I would say, yeah,
Good, Laura. Okay, I tried.
yeah. I don't know. Keep it fun, keep it fun and challenging, like set little goals for them to stay motivated and on track, yeah, I don't know. I think when I first started wrestling in high school, it like my team was amazing. I had a really great team, like that was it was it was really great. It was fun during like Christmas break. And I don't know if it would ever be something that could happen now, but we would have like a sleepover at the school during Christmas break. And I don't know, like when things are tough sometimes, when you struggle together, you come closer together, and I really believe that. And I think having that team cohesion and togetherness really like made me want to be like on the team even more, like continue on with that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's great. I'll sneak in one more here for you, Clarissa. So talking about training, which one's more important, mental or physical?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say for me it was mental. It was mental. I mean, like if like that was we go back to that, right?
Let's
So
go right into that. That's perfect. Okay,
yeah,
because I'm gonna scratch this off as soon as you
yeah.
start talking about it.
For me, it was mental, right? So I was, like we said earlier, like not the number one person for the longest time, and like it really was because I had these limiting self beliefs. I call them that. I've struggled with that, and probably still struggle with that, like in the sense that am I good enough, right? In the sense that like earlier in my career, it was the things I would say to myself were, oh, I'm new to wrestling. I just started freestyle. I'm small for the weight class. Oh, they're big, they're strong. So these were all limiting beliefs that allowed me to not really give myself my best, and the crazy thing is throughout this time, I knew I needed like to work on my mental like game, I would say. And like I kept putting it off, and then prior, I would say a year and a half, 2 years before the 2008 Olympics, I was working with a sports psychologist, and it really came to a point because like what drove me was because I felt like I couldn't be perfect in wrestling. And like we said earlier, there is no perfect in wrestling, right? So I knew there was a deeper problem for me as far as like issue for me as far as that. Finally, that was my moment where like I need to work with a sports psychologist. So what I learned was, that self-limiting beliefs was me giving my opponents the power before I even stepped on the mat, and to me, I was like, whoa, like, I don't know why that was like mind blowing to me, but I was like, why am I giving them the power? It's basically saying like, I'm giving them 5 points head start because,
Right.
like, because I would give them.
That's how good you are. See, not only you gave them 5 points, you still whipped their butt. Right.
I wish it was fun.
So, and I want to point this out. You had those even after you were the number one, even after you were the world champ, even after, I mean, you had those, and so that's where kids all over the country, all over the world have those problems. And so please just talk about that because they think that once you reach this stage, those go away.
Yeah, no. I wish I was one of those athletes that just had that pure confidence and pure belief in myself. Like, because there are some athletes who don't have to work on that, that just knows and comes out there and just whatever it is, they can just flip that switch and do it, right? Or not have a doubt, right? But that doubt crept in, you know, more times than not, even after, like you said, after winning world championships or medaling
Right.
at the Olympics. And it the mind is such a funny thing, you know, like there's so much more to just self-talk too. There's so much more to, sometimes you can't really control what creeps through your mind, you know. And it's like how it's not about like trying to block that out and ignore that. Say something crept into my mind, I'm like, man, she's big, you know, like, because it already crossed through my mind. I didn't have control. That came through my mind is, what do I say after that, you know? Like what is it that I, you know? And this is the part that I wasn't good at, is like, felt, what were my great points of who I am, right? What made me great, you know? So like when working with any of the athletes now, so knowing this struggle that I went through, working with the athletes now, these are the things that I want for them, is like, let's focus on the things you're great at, you know, like, let's not worry about what your opponent does, or, you know, that's for a place and a time. But when you're about to step on that mat, it's your match, right? It's not what are they gonna do. It's not what's like how big they look or not, you know. And it sometimes it's crazy, you know, like to think that these thoughts come in our head, and it's like, why are you giving your power away, you know? So
And that's funny that you mentioned that, because it's now 7:45 and we are moving into the full-blown question portion, but transitioning
mm-hmm.
from that elite athlete
Mm-hmm.
to now the number 2 on the women's national team coaching team. Tell us about that. How is it related? How is your failures and successes helped you? The frustrations as a coach, the
Yeah.
aspirations for others to maybe try coaching.
Yeah.
Terry, I'm sorry, but chime in anytime you want, Terry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, you know, I mean, that transition was a long time ago.
I was gonna say that was a long time ago. Okay, so we didn't want to press your memory, Terry. Okay? I just wanted to throw that.
But you know, I think it's just so much more rewarding, right? I mean, you know, as an athlete, it's all about you, and that's great, and it's great to have that focus and this and that. But I think, you know, the older you get, you realize that you want to make a difference in this world, right? And you want to make a difference in other people's lives, and so coaching is all about that, right? It's helping people be the best they can be, right? And that's gonna be a challenge. There's gonna be obstacles. There's gonna be frustrations. There's gonna be all of it, right? You're gonna deal with all of those things. But through those struggles, there's so many great things that happen. Not only the physical and mental development and all of that stuff, but just the relationships that you build along the way, and just the satisfaction of seeing someone grow, right? Seeing someone develop is there's nothing like it, right? And because it's hard and it takes time, and it doesn't happen in a linear path. That there's a lot of pitfalls along that road, and so when you see someone accomplish something, and it's just an unbelievable feeling as a coach, right? So
Yeah, I would mimic that for sure. You know, and I would say I haven't coached that long, you know. Like everything's relative. It's only been a few years, you know, but
Okay, so I'm going to butt in here. That's not true, because even as an athlete, you were a terrific coach.
Oh.
You were a terrific mentor as you grew from maybe your prime to you were a great. So that's related.
Yeah.
You know, the best workout partners are great coaches.
Yeah.
You know, so go ahead. Don't downplay yourself though. I mean, I'm not going to let you.
But you know, in those few years, there has been growth that I've seen from the athletes that we've worked with, and that is rewarding. You know, like
Big
um,
word.
it's the W's that got me. But you know, I think back. I look at Jakara, for example.
Right.
You know, and I knew Jakara like when I was like the end of my wrestling career, and you know, we got connected because she was at Missouri Valley College, and I would go back to Missouri Valley College and wrestle with her and whatnot. And then, you know, she was at the training center and had to go back to finish school and then back at the training center. So seeing her growth from
Yeah.
you know, those times to now, like such a professional athlete. You don't have to tell her a whole lot, you know, as far as like how she knows her body the best, you know, in that way it can be easy, you know, in that way. But you know, some ways are like challenging and tough, as all great athletes can be a little like hard-headed or stubborn, or you know, but that would be, you know, maybe that's not the right words, but like just
Oh no, those are the right words. Those are really, really the right words.
but
Go
I
ahead.
yeah, I agree though. I think just seeing the growth is the most fun part, you know, and like Terry said earlier, like there's no one recipe, there's no one way to coach, because each athlete is different, and how to like approach or even like how to coach each athlete might look a little different, and how the relationship looks. Laura had like popped a text to me, and she said she was gonna put a question about hot dogs. That's Terry's laughing because that is something, you know, like in the coaching role, like the administrative stuff, you know, like we grew up in the era where, you know, like maybe internet wasn't really around.
Flip phones?
Yeah. So
Hey, guys, just
yeah,
don't worry about it, okay? Get off of it. Leave
so
the man alone. Your father has one, Clarissa.
he does, but I think he's older than you. So, but I think, you know, as transitioning from athlete to a coach, there's so much more behind the scenes that athletes don't see, you know, like the planning and the preparation, like, for whether it's practice or events coming up and whatnot. And I think, it's funny because, I have a Colorado mom that I have in Colorado. When I left and came back, I think she assumed that when I would come back, I would have like a 9 to 5 job type of thing. And she thought that maybe I would be less busy than I was as an athlete. But like, she's like, every day she's like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. Your life is crazy. You're busier than anyone that I ever known, you know, like, but I love it. You know, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like sometimes it'll be like 9 or 10 at night. She's like, are you still working? I'm like, you know, whatever, right? If athletes need anything, or if you know, it's the relationships, right? Like the better we can know our athletes, the better we can help them. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that was fantastic, Frank. I see some great questions there.
Yeah. So it's funny, Clarissa, you talk about being busy. Coaching never stops. You leave the room, it doesn't stop.
No.
It's a 24-hour gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's a disease. This wrestling thing's a disease.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of it. I was gonna say, oh, no, just it's a disease.
Yeah.
nice. Way to paint a great picture there, Alex.
It's a disease. They all know it. They're on here. Okay.
I'm still fighting this disease. It's still
I know. There's problems in here and all these people with the disease. Okay. Go ahead, Frank.
All right, so Clarissa, we've got a question here from Coach Ryan. He's actually from the Big Island of Hawaii.
Oh,
And,
yay!
Yay!
808. Okay, sorry.
So he says he puts an emphasis on his athletes being engaged in multiple sports and tries to let them prioritize. But at what point do you think a coach should begin to intervene and have a talk with the athlete and or parent about potentially focusing on a specific sport?
And he coaches at high school, you said?
Right.
I'm all for multi-sport. Like, I grew up doing judo, bowling, swimming.
Bowling!
Swimming, water polo, gymnastics, and then wrestling came later. I think I don't think it's a bad thing. I really didn't fully focus onto one sport until I got to college, because that's what I went to college for, wrestling. So, and even then, when I moved to the training center, I wanted to do both judo and wrestling, and like, I really couldn't have done it because the practice times didn't really allow me to. But there were times where we got to go to the judo dojo and learn some, like, do some throws, right? And I got really excited for that. But I don't know. I would say maybe after high school is probably a good time to start focusing in on it. But I don't know. I loved like doing multi-sports throughout high school. I did. I think it I don't know, for me, it gave me it allowed me to have different things to, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I would go from judo practice to wrestling practice, or I'd go from water polo practice to wrestling practice, and I think it was fun to, like, change up some things, and it wasn't wrestling all the time. I don't know. Even though wrestling was new to me, so I don't know. Sorry, I didn't really answer that.
Yeah, I don't think you have to. Right? I don't think you have to specialize, and maybe for some kids, I think it's an individual thing. Maybe some kids really want to do that, but if a kid wants to do multiple sports, I would say let them do multiple sports, right? Because they're going to find so many different challenges from different sports too, and different opportunities to learn and grow and develop, not just physically but mentally. And so I really wouldn't limit that. I would really leave it to the individual, right? As long as they're doing what you're asking them to do, and putting in their hours and efforts with the wrestling practices. If they want to join another sport, and it's still going to keep them competitive, it's still going to keep them in good physical condition. They're going to learn other capacities that they have and the things that they have to deal with, and so I think it's all positive.
Yeah.
Except for bowling. No, I'm kidding all you bowlers out there.
Hey, we were talking about French fries earlier. I could have French fries in my left hand
and a ball in the other, and still be good. I was gonna say something different than French fries, but I got you got a this in this hand and this in this hand. You got a cigar over here. You're spoiling. I got a problem.
Bowling, no cigars. I really did it for the bowling alley food.
Anyway, here's some good questions here. Let's get to them. Frank.
Yeah. So Terry, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but so as a male coach on a female team, how do you deal with the possible liability issues?
I just think you have to be straightforward, right? I think you have to have very clear boundaries, right, of who you are and what your intentions are, and the coaches that you bring into the program, you have to make sure they have boundaries, right, and they have very clear intentions of what they're there to do, right, and I think that's going to eliminate a lot of things. But I think it's just, I say common sense. Maybe it's not common sense, but I think it's you just don't do things, one-on-one, a lot. Like even at the training center right now, like we're forbidden to go in with an athlete one-on-one, right? There has to be a third party there. We don't have meetings with the door closed, right? There has to be either another coach or another athlete in that room. It's never a one-on-one situation because you're just leaving room for things to happen, or the perception, and perception becomes reality, right? And it doesn't matter if something is wrong or not, or something did happen or not. You can't leave room for a perception to slip in, right? And so you just have to have those kind of policies to protect the athlete, number one, right? And to protect yourself as a coach and the organization you're working for. I mean, you just have to put some of those in place, but it starts with, knowing what's your intention right away, right? And what's the purpose of being in that room with athletes, and you have to have very clear boundaries of why you're there. And I think once you do that, I think it's all the same. It's whether same as coaching boys or male or female. I don't think it's any different, but I understand. I mean, I know when I first started in this position, right, I thought I'd worked through everything like that, and all of a sudden, the first time I was on the mat with the athletes, all of a sudden I didn't know how to explain my own sport. I was nervous. I couldn't communicate, and part of it was like I didn't know what to say. Do I say chest? Do I say breast? Can I touch here? Can I touch there? And I was afraid of that, but I left that practice really upset at myself because I realized it wasn't their problem. This was my fear and my issue, right? And I just basically what I just told you before is after that first practice, I went back to the second practice and I said, listen, this is my purpose for being here, and more to myself. The athletes already knew this, but this is my purpose for being here, and this is what I have to do, and I'm going to coach you like anyone else, right? I'm going to coach you like you're a wrestler in front of me, and I'm not going to differentiate between the two, right? And because I didn't know that, I was a man, I was a male in the sport of wrestling, and I was around men's wrestling my entire time in the sport, and all of a sudden I was hired for the women's job. I had zero experience, right? But I had experience coaching. I had experience dealing with people and dealing with issues and things like that. So were the issues different? Were the people different? Yeah, but not so different, right? That I couldn't relate and move it across the board. But it was, I think it had to start with a sincerity of why I was there. So.
Perfect.
Excellent. Appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
All right. So from Joe, this could be for either one of you here, with the postponement of the Olympic Games this year. And I don't know how honest you can really be with this one, but do you see many changes with your current team?
Well, our team isn't set right now, right? I mean, our team is still up in the air, right? I mean, we don't have a team right now. I mean, we have a bunch of people vying for those 6 spots on the Olympic team. We know we have 6 weights qualified, so that's behind us. But outside of that, it's really open game. Everyone's in it to win it, right? And it's our job to get all of them ready, and it's their job to decide who's on the team, right? And so that's really, you never know. You can't just focus on 1, 2, or 3 athletes, right? Because you never know when something's going to happen, injury is going to happen, illness is going to take place, and all of a sudden the person you thought was going to be in there is gone, and their opportunity is shut down. You have to prepare everyone and give everyone the knowledge to be successful on that Olympic mat when that time comes. Who is on there, it really doesn't matter to us as long as they're ready to perform when they get there and do the job that we'd like to see, and that's bring home medals, right? And so there's, who knows who's going to be on that team.
It
There's
could
a
be
question.
anyone.
here's a question, Terry or Clarissa. Just, wasn't there one more qualifying tournament? I know we qualified all 6, but was there one that was yet to be determined? So we don't know who in the world is still qualified?
Yeah, because the Continentals, Pan Am's was the only one that had. So you still
okay.
have like Asians, Europeans, African Oceanias, and then you still
But
have the last world
final. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
But, yeah, like Terry said, you never know. I was an underdog in '08. I took 4th at nationals
Right.
a month and a half before Olympic team trials, and so many stories.
Every Olympic cycle that I've been involved in as a coach, there's been a surprise Olympian. Every Olympic cycle so far, right? So you never know.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's why you gotta love the sport.
Or hate it. Or hate it.
No.
Okay.
So
Well,
let's wrap it up here. We got one more question. This shouldn't take too long. So Clarissa, we talked about being a world champ, talked about being Olympic bronze, multiple time national champ. The accolades continue on and on. Out of all your medals, which one's most special to you?
Oh man. I don't know. I would say probably the Olympic one because it sucks losing the Olympic medal in '08. And I remember both of 2008 and 12 very vividly. And I just really did not want to walk away not coming home with a medal. So I think, although it wasn't a gold medal, yeah. And plus it was, I think, the first medal for wrestling in 2012. So it was almost like I could feel a little bit of relief around like USA wrestling as a whole too. So yeah, I don't know. I think nothing more special than being a part of the Olympics. So.
And just so everyone knows the background of it a little, the person that Clarissa beat in 2012 for the Olympic bronze was that young lady was the Olympic champion in 2004, and that was the same girl that beat Clarissa in the bronze medal match in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so there was some redemption there. So and it was definitely beating a very seasoned veteran to win that Olympic medal. So yeah, it was a great moment in women's wrestling in the U.S.
Wow.
absolutely.
Didn't know that tidbit there. That's fantastic.
Did you know she was the shortest?
No, I'm joking. No.
You know she was the shortest athlete on the U.S. team too.
Yeah, right. That's too hard to beat. Any shorter, then maybe I could be a para.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, this has been a terrific one, Clarissa. Phenomenal job. We really appreciate the honesty, the positivity, the insight. So one of the things that we always do in our webinar is we have a giveaway, and the giveaway is the free apparel, to anyone who's been on the webinars. So, Clarissa, you're going to be our guinea pig this week. I'm picking on these two, for the past 7-8 weeks, whatever it's been, to pick the winner here. So you got to pick a number. The number has to be between, we're looking at 3 and 100. Pick a number.
8.
8. Let's see, going to number 8. All right. 8 is
Jess Medina. It's a setup.
all right. I'm probably going to butcher this one, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Natalie Cleveter.
Yay.
All right. So she is our winner this week. We will get an email out to her and get sizes and everything, get apparel to her. So Clarissa, thanks for that.
Thank you guys.
So we have our website built, teamglobalenergy.com. I've seen a lot of people become free members, have access to all these webinars, all the content, and also to learn more about the partnership that we have with USA Wrestling, Ambit Energy, and Team Global Energy. So, we're working right now about taking this opportunity and taking it to our membership base for all of our USA Wrestling members, but local organizations, individuals, et cetera, et cetera. So please go to teamglobalenergy.com. You can learn more about what we really have and how it might be able to help you and your club, your team, your organizations, and anyone else that you might be involved with. So,
And the national team.
And the national team, 100%. 100%. So Terry, do you want to talk a little more about that?
Yeah, so first I just want to thank Alex and Frank for doing a great job today, moderating the call, and then of course thank Clarissa for being the person that you are and agreeing to come on here. I think it was a great call, and we had some valuable insight for the coaches and the attendees. But so in all of this, it really draws back to our national team, right? USA Wrestling has partnered with Ambit Energy, and Ambit Energy is a supply company, electric supply company around the globe, and through that, every energy bill that comes into Ambit Energy through USA Wrestling, USA Wrestling national teams get a piece of that that goes into USA Wrestling's budget, and so there's different ways you can be a part of that. You can come in as just a customer and get your energy bill switched over to Ambit Energy, or you can become a consultant and ask people to do the same. And so we hope that you take a look at the link or the website, I think that Frank put on the chat, and take a look at it. And if you're interested in helping out, we'd love to give you more information and go down that road. But if not, we appreciate your time and being on the call and listening, and invite your friends and get more people on. We're going to keep bringing more guests on all the time, but thank you all.
Yeah.
Next week is supposed to be Mean Gene, the pinning machine. Gotta love Gene Mills. And I want to do a shout out, and that's to Coach Steiner, who was in an air-conditioned restaurant, and because it was too noisy. Actually, I really didn't hear anybody, but I wanted to get him out of the restaurant anyway. So I said it was too noisy. So right now he's doing it in his car. He's sitting in his car at 100 degrees. He's like a dog. You can see the sweat beading off his head. But that's just a little payback, Coach, for those 6 o'clock runs. So no, Frank, again, fantastic job as always. Terry, yeah, you're the man. Love having you. This has been great. But Clarissa, you're awesome. I love you.
Awesome.
You know that.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thanks. Anything else, Frank?
No, I just one last thing. If you have any suggestions on who you might want for future guest speakers, send me an email at info@teamglobalenergy.com, and we'll do what we can to get as many of those on as possible. So thank you guys. Great call this week. Clarissa, Terry, once again, phenomenal job. Appreciate the insight.
Thank you.
All right.
Aloha. Okay.
Aloha.
Aloha. See you guys. Thanks, guys.
Bye.